This video, I'm going to show you why everything changes when you go through a spiritual awakening, and I'm going to show you exactly what you can do about it. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you an epiphany that I had yesterday when I was filming a podcast episode. So I'm in a podcast episode, real leisurely, real casually right here on my couch. It was on understanding the self-image and how we can transform our self-image and the different processes, the most powerful ways that I found to do that. If you want to check out that podcast episode, plus subscribe to the podcast, you can do that in the top of the description box below. And what that was is it was like a 50-minute episode where I was going real deep, and then I had this realization because I was talking about how any change you make in your life will have to do with, at some level, changing your self-image. Now, let me show you an example of this. When I used to see myself as somebody that had ADHD, that had problem focusing. I saw myself as somebody that had felt very resistant about my past. I felt unworthy because of the past situations I went through with having like a rougher childhood. And that identity, the way that I saw myself, I also saw myself as somebody that was only worthy of making a certain amount per year, and I saw myself as like an employee of somebody that was my boss. Anytime I made a shift in my self-image, that's when everything began to change. So for example, I shifted my self-image even when I had my old 9-to-5 job, working at worked at Nordstrom's for when this happened. When I worked at Nordstrom's, I was selling women's shoes. I saw myself as only able to make, I saw myself as an average employee. Someone that came in, I did good, but I wasn't at the top or anything. I wasn't one of the top salespeople because it was a commission sales-based environment. Then what I did is every single day I went in, what was really cool is it was almost like a law of attraction playground. Because every day I went in, I started at zero, and I could see the difference between my intention, the energy I had, the kind of dynamic I had, whether I was having fun or whether I was more seriously focused on my goals, whether I was focused on me making money or on the value that I added to the customer. I would play around with these different dynamics. And one of the things that I found out was the biggest change I ever had in how well I was doing was when I changed my self-image. I simply started to see myself as the kind of person that was at the top of the salesperson list. Every day we went in, we would check this list, and the list was the top salespeople from the day before, from the top down to the person that didn't sell it that much. And I started to see myself as going in every day, looking at myself and seeing myself at the top. Within a day, I started to be at the top of the list every single day moving forward from then on. And it had to do with me changing my self-image. I was like, okay, how else can I use this? Then I learned meditation. And when I learned meditation, I was still at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I learned how to observe my thoughts rather than react to it. I realized that I had a thought about myself, I thought about myself as having ADHD, all of this resistance, not able to focus. And then I was like, okay, I wonder what would happen if I let go of that self-image, and I saw myself as somebody that meditated, somebody that was able to be calm, still had a lot of energy, but was able to channel that energy in a powerful way. Well, that's when I then went through a spiritual awakening, and my whole entire life then began to change. And I eventually then used that later on, because then I went from there to Barney's, New York, selling women's shoes. And when I was at Barney's, New York, what I did is I decided I want to go full-time on YouTube. So I simply changed my self-image, saw myself as my own boss. I saw myself as a full-time YouTuber even before my outer reality reflected I was a full-time YouTuber. And then within a couple months, I became a full-time YouTuber. So the reason I'm sharing all this with you is every major change that I've had in my life has been through changing my self-image. Now, the thing I realized while sitting on that couch is I said the main reason people go through a spiritual awakening have such a drastic change in their life, they relate to their friends differently, they relate to reality different, all of these things, is because they've changed their self-image. And because you've changed your self-image, everything begins to change. Now, let me explain to you how that works. Before a spiritual awakening, you may see yourself as a mortal human being, somebody that maybe doesn't know that much about who you are, and you see yourself as like, I don't know what happens after death, or I don't know this, or I don't know that. But then you go through a spiritual awakening, and it's not that you necessarily know exactly what's going to happen after death, because nobody really knows. But you start to tap into this spiritual dimension where you just start to know that you are beyond this body. You are beyond the five senses. And you start to see yourself as a spiritual being having a temporary human experience instead of, before that, a human being having a human experience. So you see, the difference is profound because then you relate to everyone differently. When I went through my spiritual awakening, then my identity began to change in a powerful way. You'll notice that a lot of people that go through a spiritual awakening, they switch up their diet very quickly. They realize they are vibrational beings. What you put into your body becomes a part of you. So if you're putting heavy meats and deep fried foods and GMOs into your body, you won't feel as good as if you were to eat higher vibrational foods. And you become more aware of that. And you change your self-image. You start to see yourself as somebody that's more consciously aware. Many people will start to identify with being a high vibe person. Then, because of that identity shift, they then relate to their friends in a different way. I remember when I went through my awakening, I had such a dramatic change between who I was, which I was somebody that was smoking weed a lot. I was somebody that was drinking a lot. This is back in 2012. I needed those things to get by. And what happened is that when I changed my self-image, when I went through meditation, I started to observe my ego rather than react. Then all of a sudden I started to feel high majority of the time. And when I say high, I mean like on a scale of 1 to 10, I went from feeling like a 3 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. And that changed the way that I felt. Now I don't need to drink. I don't need to smoke. I don't do any of that anymore. And I focus more on just knowing that my self-image, that who I am, I feel high majority of the time. That's part of my self-image. But really it's about letting go a lot of the identity that's just not you, because then your vibration naturally begins to raise. But the main reason that you go through such a dramatic change when you go through that of a spiritual awakening is because it changes your identity. You are no longer just a mortal human that is kind of banging around trying to figure stuff out. Not that even then after a spiritual awakening you know everything, but you just have more of a calmness and more of an understanding that this is all temporary. The irony is on one ego, one self-image, you may be aware, oh, this is an illusion. And then a better self-image may be you doing what you love for a living. It might be you connected to other people. But even that is also a form of illusion, because this whole reality is more like a dream than it is as real as we think it is. We interpret reality through the five senses, which are the 5 different ways that we use to vibrationally interpret our reality. But there's so much more than that. And the more you meditate, the more you go within, the more you tap into this deeper level of consciousness. And when you do that, it's like people want to know, well, where's the proof? Show me proof. What is this? What is that? And it's like, well, it's something you tap in within inside of yourself. It's not really something that can be put into words or something that I can like pull out of a hat and show you what it is. But nonetheless, it makes it no less real. It's so powerful. It's so real for the people that experience it. So for a spiritual awakening, the key is knowing that you can be, do, or have anything you want in your life. The advice that I give is to go for your passion, because when you're centered in your heart, it's almost like the universe wants you to succeed because it knows that you're going to add value to other people. And then beyond that, it's also about understanding that even the self-image that you can attain, like right now, I'm at a certain self-image where I love what I do on YouTube. I love what I do on social media. But now what I want to do is I want to develop the self-image of wiring in a new way of being, of me traveling the world and speaking in front of people. I've already done this a little bit. I want to do this at a greater scale. So I imagine this version of me. And what I do is I can begin to tap into that version of me by realizing also that version of me already exists. Everything exists here and now. This is where we bring in the parallel reality teachings that I talk a lot about. But that allows me to use my imagination to then connect to that version of me and then to literally behave and be that version of me, knowing the more I repetitiously do that, the more comfortable it becomes. But even when I imagine the version of me that's traveling the world, that's speaking in front of people, that's helping people transform their lives in person, even when I imagine that version of me, that's also an illusion. It's just a more resonant illusion for the way that I prefer to be. You see, because the truth is we are high vibrational beings that don't really naturally feel kind of encapsulated within a certain form. We're energy beings at our at our core, but we have this temporary experience. Because the reason I say this is because I could say, that's who I am. I speak in front of people. But there'll come a time when I'm 50, 60 years old where maybe I do something a little different. Maybe I still do that, but maybe I do it more consultation style. Or I'm doing it more in a different way. Who knows? But what I'm saying is we use these different self-images in a way that's more resonant with who we really are. But at the same time, we interchange them because the truth is we are eternal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. Now, the reason I say this too is so that you can tap more into your self-image. What is your self-image? How do you see yourself? What do you see yourself as capable of doing? If you think yourself as not being capable of having a loving relationship, then you will attract people that reflect back to you an unbalanced relationship, or don't reflect that love back to you. If you view yourself as only able to make $50,000 per year of income, then what will happen is your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions will be equal to what you believe you are worthy of. The key to this is changing the self-image. How do you see yourself? At a certain point in your past, you decided this is what I'm capable of. Maybe it was social conditioning. Maybe it was your parents saying this is how much your dad and mom makes, this is what you're capable of as well. You just kind of it was a hand-me-down that you thought was that is the same thing you're capable of. But now you become aware of the subconscious. You become aware of how you see yourself. Then what you say is you realize, hey, this is an illusion. This is something I agreed to subconsciously, which is why we must still take responsibility from it because we chose and agreed to it at a certain point in our past. If, for example, you were in school, somebody said, you're awkward, you're weird. Well, even though somebody said that else to you, you agreed to it. You said, yeah, maybe I am. And you started to internalize it. If you didn't internalize it, it wouldn't have anything to do with you. So the key is understanding that we agreed to it. And because we agreed to it, we can then begin to break the agreements we've made that other people have given us, that we have given ourselves. Because once we break those agreements, we break those parts of our self-image that are keeping us held back. So the key to this is understanding our self-image and when in the past we decided this is who I am. If your parents treated you a certain way and you find that in relationships people treat you a certain way, then maybe it's because you agreed that this is what you're worthy of because of past prior reference experience. If you become aware of those situations and realize that at a certain point in your past you decided this is who you are, you can then look at those experiences, let them go, break those agreements, break those attachments to your identities, and then be the way that you prefer to be. But in general, it's about becoming aware of when you agreed, becoming aware of when you internalize these things, and then becoming aware of how you can dial in on the frequency of you that you prefer, doing what you love, coming at it from your heart, realizing you're connected to everyone else. Very powerful understanding going through spiritual awakening is that we're all connected, and that the more value I add to other people, whether it's my YouTube videos, whether it's the content I create on social media, working with people in person at live events, the more value I add, the more value comes back to me, which means I then have more resources to create more value. It's a spiritual understanding that that's the way it works. And if you focus on the value you add with the gifts that you have, with the way you're able to show up in the world, those will come back to you. One of the most spiritual things you can do is do your passion, because whatever you're passionate about is going to be contagious energy. It's going to inspire other people to do their passion. And not only that, but your passion most likely is linked up to adding value in some way to other people. Whether that's giving them an emotion, whether that's making them understand something more. There's many different layers to this. But in general, the reason spiritual awakening changes everything is because you've changed your identity. And changing your identity is the key to all transformation. You will always remain consistent to the way that you see yourself. There's a thermometer over there on the wall that is marked at 76 degrees. I like 76 degrees. I think it feels nice, so I keep it at that in my house. The AC is on right now. If I were to open up this door, I live in Las Vegas. It's like 100 degrees outside. What'll happen is the house will start to heat up. That will hit and send a signal from the AC, from the thermometer to the AC to turn on to keep it down to 76 degrees. Now that's because it's a cybernetic mechanism. It stays whatever you set it at. In the same way, if you see yourself as only able to make $50,000 a year, what will happen is no matter what, you could say, I intend to make $100,000 a year, but if you don't change your self-image, then subconsciously you will sabotage yourself back to $50,000 a year. So it's about becoming aware of that self-image and changing it at the level of identity. If you want to become somebody that goes to the gym daily, you don't need to be somebody that just has a diet and loses weight. You are the type of person that goes to the gym every day. You don't eat a diet just because you're going to lose weight. You eat healthy food because it's who you are. I don't make a video a day on YouTube so that I get more YouTube subscribers. I make a video a day on YouTube because it is who I am at my level of identity. I don't have this intention of adding value to people because I'm some holy saint. I do it because it's who I am and I understand the spiritual principles. Everything I'm sharing with you right now is about changing your identity at the core. And in the new podcast episode that I have filmed or recorded, it's in the top of the description box below. I show you the most powerful ways to do that. I recommend as well, twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, I post new podcast episodes. The only place you can get it is you click the links below. And what I will do is I go deep. A lot of them are longer form podcasts, so it's more casual. It's more like we're having a conversation. I sometimes bring people on and we have conversations, and I'm very excited for it. I'll be putting a lot more into my podcast. So if you haven't subscribed yet to it, you could do so at the bottom of the description box below. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it. If you could smash that like button, I would really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. Plus, you smashing the like button sends us the signal out. You saying, yo, I'm changing my self-image. That's just one thing you could do for it. So other than that, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace, much love, and namaste.